Rosario can. All right, we can get started for today. Rosario, do you want to kick us off for the meeting today?
Sure. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and good afternoon, everyone. As everyone already know, at this point, we are conducting a class and comp study, and Public Sector Personnel Consultants is the company that has been selected to conduct the study for us. And Bob here will be facilitating the presentation today about how the study is going to go on and what the next steps are going to be. So thank you, Bob.
Yeah, no, thanks for the introduction. As Rosario said, my name is Bob Longmire with Public Sector Personnel Consultants. We're the ones doing the class and comp study. So today I'll talk a little bit about what the class and comp study is, what the study isn't, your participation in the process. I'll walk through the PAQ here at the end. That's the document that we use to help identify what it is that you're doing. So we'll walk through all of that here over the course of the meeting. But yeah, as the name suggests, Public Sector Personnel Consultants, this is all that we really do. We get a chance to do maybe 30 or 40 studies a year, travel around the country, meet a lot of different individuals who work in the public sector. And all we do is perform class and comp studies. So I was there last week in person in City Hall, meeting with some of the other employees and doing a similar presentation. But again, we have a virtual meeting today, so everybody has the opportunity to hear about the study. So a couple things high level. The easiest way to think about a class and comp study is think that we're trying to answer 3 questions for every job at the city. We're trying to say, does the job title make sense? Does the job description accurately reflect what you do? And what's the going market rate? That's it. Those are the 3 questions we're trying to answer. The reason why you do a study is so you can recruit and retain quality staff. That's the high level. So everything we're going to talk about today, everything that we're going to go through, all of the details, everything we're trying to understand about all of the jobs at the city can be boiled down into those 3 questions. Does your job title make sense? Does your job description reflect what you do? And what's the going market rate? I think you can see how a couple of these are pretty straightforward in terms of recruiting and retaining staff, right? So if we go through these questions backwards for a minute, think about the compensation side of things. I think it's pretty self-explanatory and self-evident how having a competitive market rate for the work that's being performed can help you retain as well as recruit new staff. Job titles might not be as obvious, but it's still an important thing to make sure that we have accurate titles that reflect what you do. If you think about if you have to go and hire for this position, 15 years ago in the public sector, people used to read the MOUs before applying for jobs. They used to look over benefit documents. Now they're just sitting on Indeed or NeoGov on a Sunday afternoon, watching the game, going through and applying for 40 jobs, without reading anything. So making sure we have a job title that catches an applicant's attention is important. Making sure the job descriptions are up to date and reflect what you do is key as well. We don't want everybody spending their time on everyone's 4 favorite words, right? Other duties as assigned. All right, we want to make sure the job descriptions are accurate and reflect what it is that you do. So that's what we're trying to address here. Notice a couple things the study is not. It's not a staffing needs analysis. There's 80 some odd employees here now. There's going to be 80 when we leave. We're not going to recommend anyone to be let go. We're not recommending to reduce anybody's salary. I don't think there's a better way to demotivate someone than say, hey, do you want to come to work on Monday for less than you made on Friday? Right? That's kind of a non-starter. That's just not going to work. Certainly in a competitive environment where everybody's focused on cost of living, everybody's focused on inflation and gas prices and just the cost of getting through the day. It's just a non-starter. So nobody's going backwards. Nobody's being let go. This is also not a performance review. We're going to ask you to complete a questionnaire that tells us about your jobs. It's going to be 8 pages. We're going to ask a whole bunch of questions in a lot of different ways. None of this is being used to say, are you good at your job? All we're trying to understand is to make sure we have an accurate understanding of the work that's performed so that we can answer the 3 questions we talked about earlier. So we can suggest a job title, we can update the job description, and we can find what you do out in the market. This is something most organizations do every maybe 4 to 6 years. I think the last time a study like this was done was in the aughts, maybe 2005, something like that. I think we've been through 2 once in a lifetime recessions since that happened, and a pandemic. and some reductions in force and all of those things. So it's a really good time to look across the organization and say, what work are our employees performing and what's the market going rate for that work? Who's doing what and what's that worth? That work worth. So again, something most organizations do every 4 to 6 years. This isn't meant something that's being done to the employees. This is a collaborative, meant to be a transparent process. The data lives at the table. Unions have access to the findings and the information, as well as city management, council. We'll talk about all of the implementation kind of framework and steps here at the end. Okay. So that's that side of it. Other side, don't go buy a new truck. This is not the process by which everybody gets a raise or an increase. Not everybody's going to see the same amount. Some people won't see anything as a result of the study, right? Having done enough of these, there's going to be positions that are at market that don't need adjustment. How many of those positions, who, where, we don't know yet. We have to go and do the study. So the best advice I can give anybody is don't expect anything as a result of the study. So now maybe there's a position that's behind market and we have to adjust it. We'll talk about all of those things here in a little bit. But right now, the best advice I can give everybody is don't expect an increase as a result of the study. So a little bit of borders on what the study is, right? A little bit of framework. On one side, no one's being let go. No salaries are being reduced. It's not a performance evaluation. On the other side, don't get a boat and expect a huge increase as a result of the study. Okay, so a couple earmarks there on what it is. Let me talk for a minute about the classification side of things, then I'll pause for a second for any questions anybody has on the first part before we get into compensation. All right, classification is the first 2 questions that we're trying to answer, right? Remember our 3 big questions that we're trying to address for every job at the city. Classification is meant to address the first 2 questions. Does your job title make sense? Does your job description accurately reflect what you do? So there's about 81 employees now. You either fit or don't fit into about 60 different job titles. Now, maybe that's the right number of titles. Maybe we need more. Maybe we need less. We don't know until we have an accurate understanding of the work that's performed. So tomorrow, an email is going to go out from Rosario, and it's going to have a link in it. You can click on that link, and it's going to bring you to an online questionnaire where we're going to ask you a whole bunch of questions about your job. We're going to ask you, and we're going to walk through it here at the end, but we're going to ask you to tell us directly what it is that you do so that we don't have to come in and guess, that we're not looking at your job title going, oh, I know what that does. And we make an assumption about the work that you perform every day. We want to hear directly from every employee what it is that they do. So this is your voice in the process. Think about the direction the information is flowing. We're not coming into your city saying, we know how to run insert department here, right? We're not saying we know how to run this department. We're saying, what is it that you're doing? Based on that, suggesting a job title, updating the job description, finding what you do out in the market. So a couple possible outcomes from the classification side of things. Imagine we get these questionnaires back and we have 81 questionnaires. Maybe some people do them as a group. I'll get to that in a second. But, we get these questionnaires back and I got 2 different people with 2 different job titles, but lo and behold, they're doing the same thing. Maybe we merge those jobs together. So where you once had 2 titles, you now have 1 title. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe we see that we get 2 questionnaires back. They have the same job title, but lo and behold, we're doing wildly different things. So maybe we recommend we split those jobs apart. Where there once was 1 title, there's now 2 titles. Now remember, nobody's being let go. We're not here saying, oh, if you just work one person harder, then you can get rid of the other, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about making sure we have an accurate title to reflect the work the employee is performing. So classification. We also might have the opportunity to come on site and meet with some different employees just to say, hey, listen, I got your questionnaire. I had a couple questions about this. Can you tell me a little bit more about blank and help me to understand it? So if Rosario reaches out to you and says, hey, will you meet with the consultants? Will you tell them a little bit about your job? That's all we're trying to do. There's nothing to be worried or concerned or any of that about. We're just trying to have an accurate understanding of what the work is that you perform so that we can do those things. Okay. All right. Let me pause there for a second. Any questions? Anything you want to ask about the classification side of things, job titles, job descriptions, before we jump into the salary survey side of things. And then we'll talk about the PAQ here at the end. I'll walk you through it page by page. Any questions so far? No? Okay. All right. I'll talk about usually what people tend to care the most about, right? It's a little bit of call me what you want to call me, but pay me like the market. So salary survey side of things. So once we have an accurate understanding of what it is that the employees do, we can go and find that job out in the market. It's a relatively factual process. Who's doing what? What's the market going rate? So have a group of comparators to say, all right, we want to have maybe between 10 and 15 different cities in the market basket. We want to keep as close to you as possible so that we can answer the question. If we don't sell the house, we don't pull the kids out of school, we commute in a different direction, what would they pay you? That can help us answer the question, where are we? From there, we can work with council, city management, the unions through the negotiation process to say, where do we want to be? Imagine a world in which we're 5% behind on salary, but 5% ahead on benefits. Is that good? Is that where we want to be? Do we value one more than the other? How do we think about these things, right? There's a point in time in which you're just looking to put food on the table. You're just trying to make the truck payment and you're focused on that salary only number. Then the value of those benefits hit home, right? It's usually like 2.2 kids and a white picket fence and 11 years until retirement. And you start going, man, these benefits are a lot, right? So when we go out and do the salary survey, we're going to look, how do you stack up salary schedule to salary schedule, as well as how do you stack up total compensation to total compensation. Total compensation is really made up of 3 additional factors on top of salary range maximum. Talking about health insurance premiums. So what's the maximum amount an organization is willing to contribute for a family health and dental plan? So what's that number monthly? Add that to the salary. After that, we want to look at retirement. How much is an organization asking an employee to contribute towards that employee's retirement? Right? If you guys if some of you are older and remember the ye old-timey days, before PEPRA in a classic environment where you had EPMCs, where the city was paying for a portion of the employee's contribution. Now at almost every organization, the employee is paying their own way on a classic plan, 7, 8%, something like that. Now we start to see cities going back into even saying, okay, employee, in addition to 7 or 8% of your own contribution, I need you to help me with mine. And it's like a negative EPMC. So we've been seeing some of those start to pop up in the market. So just again, tracking all of that to say, hey, out in the market, yes, that other place's salary is a little higher, but they're also paying 2% more towards their own retirement. You're getting deferred comp, right? Trying to balance all of these factors to say, how do we stack up salary schedule to salary schedule? How do we stack up total compensation to total compensation? Final factor of that, we want to start to look at what's the contributions towards health, health, dental, retirement, but also all of my ad pays, all my certification incentives, all of my longevity, bilingual, ad pays, cert pays, all the other stuff that you get to add to that salary at the top. So how do we stack up salary schedule, salary schedule? How do we stack up total compensation to total compensation? What does that picture look like? Couple possible outcomes. So classification side of things, we already talked about cleaning up some of the job titles. Maybe we have job titles that move from technician to specialist or, analyst, making sure we have titling protocols and consistencies across all departments. So making sure we use the right titles to describe the right work. Think about some changes, possible outcomes in the market. One of the thoughts in the market is some jobs might need to move more than others. Okay, imagine I got 2 jobs and right now we're paying them the same. We go out and survey both jobs and this job's good, but this job's behind market. Okay, well, hey, great. Good news. I don't have to worry about this job. It's compensated appropriately. We're all set. This job here may need to see an increase. So sometimes employees who used to be on the same range with somebody else in a different job, and they always thought about their job in comparison to the other person's job. Now, what used to be on the same range are now on different ranges. Totally normal outcome. All right. Maybe we have examples where some jobs, like I said, are at market and don't need to move. Since it's been a long time since the study's been done, maybe the city can't get out of this situation in a year. So another possible outcome is maybe ranges move faster than people. So let me explain that for a second, because that can be a little bit tricky of a concept. So easiest example is pretend I got a range that's 10% behind market. Okay. Salary minimum, salary maximum, steps in between. I'm 10% behind market. Okay. So maybe right away we can shift that range 10%. An employee who was on maximum, maybe they go from step 5 to step 3 of the new range. So they didn't lose any money. They have additional earning potential. They are now eligible to get steps. And over the next 2 years, they can get their steps. They can move from step 3 to step 4 to step 5. Instead of being stuck at the top, they're now eligible for increases along the way. So maybe that's how we have to handle it. Again, I don't know, but maybe we can move the ranges and place employees onto what's called next highest step. So you don't go backwards, but we put you onto the step that is closest to where you're at. And then over the next year, 2 years, you earn your way through that new higher range. So again, a couple possible outcomes. Until we go and do this, we don't know. You know, I've done enough of these studies. I've never had somebody come up to me after a meeting or online in a situation like this. And I've never had somebody say, hey, listen, I'm really glad you're here. I go into Rosario every 2 weeks and I tell her I'm overpaid and she just won't take money away from me. Right? I've never had somebody tell me that. So all of the employees, you know, generally believe that if you were to go do this somewhere else, you would make more money. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. We don't know, right? Until we go do this study, I don't know. So again, best advice I can give everybody, don't go buy a new truck expecting a huge increase as the result of the study. Okay, let me pause there before I jump into the PAQ. Any questions on classification, job titles, job descriptions, compensation, market study, comparators, total comp? Any questions on anything so far? Okay. All right. So let me talk about the PAQ then. We'll keep going. So all employees are going to receive a link tomorrow. And if you're watching this video online, good luck doing the tomorrow date, Thursday, whatever. Employees are going to get a link with a new question to click on to create a new questionnaire. Every time you click on that link, it will create a new questionnaire. I'll show you how to save it and come back to it later. But as of, you know, for now, that's you click on it to create a new questionnaire. If you want to work them as part of a group, that's great. So if you have the same job title as somebody else and you do the same thing and you want to give me one questionnaire with 3 people's names on it, I'm going to assume all 3 of you do the same thing. All 3 of you are going to end up with the same job title and all 3 of you will have the same job description. Again, if you all do the same thing, that works great. If you happen to do something different and you want us to look at that job differently, you can do your own PAQ. So we're open to it, however you want to do, and whatever you think works best for you in your individual situation. Now, you're going to have until October 27th to complete a questionnaire. So you got about, what does that make? Like, you got a couple days to do it. You know, please don't start at the night of the 26th, right? Avoid the college homework problem. Get started on it. You're going to get in the email that goes out, you know, you'll be able to find and access your job description. If you can't find it, go talk to your director. I know they have a copy from Rosario. Carry around that job description with you, start marking it up, crossing it out, you know, however you want to think about your existing job description works great for us. And then start completing the questionnaire. You have until the 27th. After that, an email is going to go out to your supervisor so that they can provide feedback and input on the PAQ as well. When your supervisor provides their notes on the job, an email goes to the employee and an email goes to the supervisor so that everybody can see what everybody's writing. All right, getting into the questionnaire, we get 2 main questions. We've done more than 25,000 PAQs through this system. We get 2 questions. Question number 1, we're going to pre-populate this with information from the payroll file. You're going to select your department, your title, your name from the payroll file. If any of that information isn't correct, that's okay. You can edit it on page 2. Like it says it on the questionnaire. There's a video that plays before the PAQ of me sitting in front of my office wall. It says it in bold letters, and we still get asked it 20 times. Like what to do if the information from the payroll file isn't correct. That's okay. You can edit it on page 2. So on page 2, it looks like this. Type in, if any of the information isn't correct, update the job title, update your email address, your supervisor's name, whatever it is, you can make those changes and those updates there. All right. After that, if you're working on it as part of a group, say yes. It'll bring you to this page where you can just tag, you can add their name to the PAQ, and we will count them as having completed a questionnaire. All right, next section. The first 2 pages are going to be the hardest. They're the blankest. They're the ones that require the most creative writing assignment. So on the position's purpose, think if I were to meet you and to say, "Hi, I'm Bob. It's nice to meet you. What do you do?" Put that there. We have job description writers who will make it sound like it belongs on a job description. You just give us the high level content, give me maybe 3 to 5 sentences about what it is that you do, and we'll make it sound like it belongs on a job description. Again, if you're having a hard time getting started, this is the position's purpose, the summary right at the top of the job description. Why does this position exist? What is it that you do? Next, we moved this one around a little bit. We've reorganized it since I took these screenshots. Comparable job titles, it's now at the end of the PAQ, but hey, listen, if you happen to know what your job is called at other organizations, feel free to tell us that there. Not necessarily saying we agree, but I'll start reading those job descriptions first. And we can do that. Some people keep an eye on it. They get industry flyers, they get, recruitment letters from other organizations. If you don't know, totally fine. It's our job to go find it. We'll do it. You can use these back and next buttons to navigate around the PAQ and go from there. All right. If you're tired already and it's just us talking about it, this save and continue later button up at the top is for you. So if you click save and continue later, it'll bring a little drop down, type in your email address, and it'll send you a new link that's just for you to return to your questionnaire so that you can work on it over multiple days. So if you don't plan on doing it in one sitting and you want to work on it over a little bit of time, use the save and continue later button. And you'll get an email from, it's either Survey Gizmo or Alchemer. They're the ones who host this PAQ for us. And you'll get an email from them saying, hey, here's a link to return to your questionnaire. So use that if you need a little bit of a break in the middle of the process. All right. Next page, it's everybody's least favorite page, but it's my favorite page. Give me where your functions, tasks, and duties are, and where you're spending a percentage of your time. In each one of these boxes over here, maybe give me 3 to 5 sentences about what it is that you do, and then a percentage of time and how often it is you're doing that. So think in terms of a day. If your job is very routine and you kind of do the same thing every day, think in terms of a day. If your job varies from season to season, then think in terms of, a month, a year, whatever time frame you want to use works for us. So might look like, hey, 25% of my time, I'm doing routine maintenance on fleet vehicles. Since I'm a mechanic, that looks like, I spend, sorry, excuse me. Hey, I'm a mechanic, I'm doing routine maintenance. That looks like oil changes, fluid checks, topping up the windshield wiper fluid. Hey, then 25% of my time I'm doing major repairs and overhauls and body shop work and what is it that you're doing? How often are you doing it? And what are you working on? Again, that works for all the jobs at the organization. What percentage of time are you spending and what kind of work is it that you perform? All right, starts to get a little bit easier. What do you need to be knowledgeable of? What do you need to be skilled in order to do this job? Are you in finance and I need to be aware of general accounting principles and best practices? Is this a job, in HR where I need to be aware of personnel laws and regulations and time offs? Kind of what do I need to know? What do I need to be aware of to do this job? Next section, put on your HR hat for a minute. Pretend you had to recruit for this position. What do you want someone to have in terms of minimum education, minimum experience? Do I need to have a degree in anything? Do I need to have coursework in anything? What do I need to have? And then do I need to have any certifications for this job? Do I need to have that certification right away? Can I get it over time? What does that look like for certifications as well? All right, moving on. How do I get my instructions? What is my authority? What's my accountability? What's my autonomy? If you don't know the answer to something, does nobody in the building? Are you the subject matter expert? How do you get help from your supervisor? All of these things are what we're trying to figure out. What's the outcome of a bad decision? When do you have to ask for approval? What are you authorized to do? All of these questions are trying to get at everybody's least favorite sentence, matters of significance. So we're trying to identify what decisions are you making and what are you encumbering the city for. All right, final section. Is there anything we forgot? Anything else you think is helpful for us to know? You can attach any org charts or anything you think is helpful. And then if you supervise employees, say yes. If you supervise employees, it'll bring you to this page. Go through a quick hire and fire matrix to say yes. I'm the one who hires them. I prepare their work schedules. If they're out sick, they call me. And I bring somebody in. I can approve overtime. What does your supervisory responsibilities look like? What decisions are you making? What decisions are your supervisor making? And all of that. Okay, when you click next, it's going to bring you to the signature page. Again, you can use these next and back buttons at the bottom to move around. Once you get to the signature page and click next, it's going to submit it. The page is called the submittal page. So go ahead and click and drag, sign, type in your name, click next, and an email is going to go out to your supervisor. The email is going to say, hey, supervisor, your employee so-and-so has completed their questionnaire. Please review it. Give us your thoughts. Give us your feedback. And that PAQ is going to be attached as a PDF, just so we use as many acronyms as humanly possible and confuse everybody. So supervisors cannot change anything the employees wrote. It's like not technically possible. On the questionnaire, all of their answers are locked. Supervisors, give us your understanding of the position. Anything you think is important for us to update the job title, update the job description, find this job out in the market. It's your time to tell us what it is that you know about this position. All right, that's as fast as I can talk through classification, compensation, PAQ. Any questions on anything we've discussed or talked about so far? No? Okay. All right. Well, what I'll do then is I'll go ahead and turn off the recording so that everybody who's online, they got the presentation. I'll stick around for questions in case there's questions any of you didn't want to ask in front of the group. So I'll go ahead and turn off, if I can figure out the buttons. Okay, here we go.